Welcome to the iNetrepreneur Radio Show. We are so honored to bring you your host, the ultimate celebritypreneur, connecting businesses and celebrities worldwide. Winner of the Networking Organization of the Year, best-selling author, magazine publisher, trainer, and owner and founder of Network Together and the iNetrepreneur Media Network for magazines, TV, and radio network. We're excited to bring you your host, Mr. Robert W. Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is another Thursday in the beautiful oven called the state of Arizona, where I'm located in the Phoenix area. But today, I don't think we got to 110, so we're having an ultimate cool wave. So people in this state are looking for their sweaters right now with this cool wave that's coming through in the summertime in the first few days of August. My name is Robert Jones, and I'm really excited about having the iNetrepreneur Radio Show on today for everyone around the world. You know, that's what I love about technology. What used to be local is now international. And every time we get on, we are speaking the international language of communication. And I have two communication experts with me here today. But first, I want to go through some fabulous things that we have going on in the iNetrepreneur Network. And the first fabulous thing I would like to talk about is the Art of Connection book. Yes, the Art of Connection book still has some pages for entrepreneurs, business owners, and influencers to get involved, to share their quotes, their thoughts, their questions to the readers of the world so they can level themselves up one page at a time with outstanding knowledge. This book series, we have a place where you can get 2 pages. We call it our BOGO offer. I always get a kick out of BOGO. BOGO offer, buy one, get one. You can get a reserve date page and a second reserve date page for $269. Such a deal. But if you go to the website, which is 365 days of gratitudequotes.com, we also have a one-page offer as well. So please, come check us out. We'd love to have you a part of the book. You can join some 200 other authors in the book and some 700 authors that we have in the previous 3 books. And this book is award-winning, international best-selling. It's in the Library of Congress, and talk about credibility and really talk about the community. It's a wonderful, passionate community of heart-centered, like-minded entrepreneurs just like you. I also want to, have everyone look us up on Facebook. You can look us at facebook.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. Again, /iNetrepreneur Radio. And like I tell people, you only have to learn how to spell it once if you bookmark it. So when you bookmark it, all you have to do is click on it. And you don't have to type that again, or hopefully it comes up in your browser window as an option to click on. Also, you can find us at YouTube. That's youtube.com/iNetrepreneur Radio. Again, /iNetrepreneur Radio. Next, we also have a couple of magazines. We just dropped the recent edition of the iNetrepreneur Network magazine, and on the cover is our very own Jace and Betsy Souter. They are co-collaborators and owners of World-Class Speaker Academy out of Boise, Idaho. I mean, talking about an amazing couple. They were one of our keynotes at the Ultrapreneur Revolution Expo. And I'm sorry, guys, if you missed the expo, you missed way too much. I mean, there was information, there was connection, there was energy all in one place over the course of 2 days. And I'm telling you, if you get an opportunity to come to the Ultrapreneur Revolution next year, I mean, punch your ticket now. I'm telling you, it was an amazing event. Also, we have some other things coming up. You can go to ntevents.net. That's ntevents.net. You can check out some of our 1,000 meetings events that we put on per year. And every time I say that, I can't imagine we put on 1,000 meetings and events each and every year. It's a lot to keep up with, but we do it because we want to get you out there. Your gift deserves to be shared with the world. So we have summits, we have academy meetings, we have pop-up events. And, coming up really soon is our Art of Connection Summit. It's open to the public, but it really is a place where those who want to become authors, those who want to be a part of the Art of Connection movement, come check us out. We have a website called artofconnectionsummit.com. That's artofconnectionsummit.com. It's 5 hours. Pacific time is from 9 to 2 p.m. On September 21st. September 21st of this year is the Art of Connection Summit. You can go there, artofconnectionsummit.com, to get more information. We want you there. we want you to meet quality people, create quality relationships, and do some quality commerce. So again, check us out at ntevents.net, and you can see our virtual events, our in-person events, and all the other things that we have coming up. And so, I'm really excited to have my first guest on today. He talks about behavioral superpowers, but the man is a force of nature himself. And who I'm bringing on to the show is Mr. Jeffery Morris. How are you doing, Jeffery?
I'd be twins, Robert, if I was any better.
Oh man, I'll take that. I'll take that each and every day, and I'll take it each and every way. Here I am. I'm with Jeffery Morris. He's an author, speaker, U.S. Marine.
Hoorah!
U.S. Marine, hoorah! Behavioral SuperPower coach, consultant, and trainer, and co-founder of DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. He can be reached at jmorris at DreamSmartBehavioralSolutions.com, or he can be called at 760-415-1071. That's 760-415-1071. I am so glad you're here today, Jeffery, and I'm so glad we're going to be talking about something that you really shined on at our event, and that's behavior, isn't it?
That's right. But I had a fantastic time. As Robert has already said, if you didn't go to Ultrapreneur 2023, you got to get to Ultrapreneur 2024. You can't explain to someone the magnitude of the event and all the things that went on, Robert. I know you got to get moving, but if you didn't go, you got to go to Ultrapreneur 2024.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And Jeffery, you did a wonderful job explaining just a seed of what DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions does for us entrepreneurs, business owners, and influencers. Jeffery, I want to step back a few moments and let's talk a little bit about your life, because you didn't pop out of the womb speaking behavioral solutions. Family, a little bit about school, a little bit about your time in the Marine Corps. Let's just get to know a little bit about the Jeffery Morris that I know and love.
Right. Well, I'll share a little bit, Robert. I think I'm married. We have 6 kids, so we got the black and brown Brady bunch in my family. So we got everybody from 15 to 27. Nicholas, Annabelle, Leah. It's always an exercise in memory. Hannah, Isabel, and Caleb. They're all in various stages of life, but certainly proud of the family. I grew up in a little place called Waldorf, Maryland. I went into the Marine Corps, Robert, when I was 18 years old. And at the age of 20, I found myself in Marine Corps Scout Sniper School. Not having any idea what a sniper was. I said, well, Lieutenant Commander, what is that? And they said, well, the guys that wear the green strings on the back. And I said, oh, yeah, I can do that. Right. Not really knowing what that entailed. Little did I know that would change my life. Right. Because it was there that I started to understand behavior. I started to be a careful observer. I started to listen to what people were saying. And I learned the 3 A's there, Robert: assess, analyze, and act. I learned to do that very early in my life, and I've become really, really good at it over the last 35 years or so. But that was the genesis of really starting DreamSmart Behavior Solutions. It was my time that I spent as a Marine and learning to perfect those 3 A's. And
I want to commend you for it and recommend you for what you do now because of that. A lot of people, it takes one to know one, and we hear that saying all the time. And I understand what it's like to be a U.S. Marine. And if you're not, it's one of those things where it's an experience in so much as that it's something that you can discuss. Now, within the Marine Corps, they have billets, we call them military occupational specialties,
right?
And to be the sniper in the Marine Corps, it's very tactical. It's very pressurized, and you have to have really a certain, not just talent, but have a disposition, of greatness to be in that position. Jeffery, tell me maybe some of the reasons why they chose you to be a Marine Corps sniper, because very, very, very few people become a Marine, but very few people become a Marine Corps sniper.
Robert, it has something to do with character, communication, presence, like all of the things we talk about when we see transformative leaders. right? So even at an early age, people really identify the talents that I did have. And even though I didn't understand what a Marine sniper was, whatever the challenge I was given at that age, you're just dumb enough and young enough to believe that you can just do anything. And as I went into the school, I was told that there's a 15% graduation rate.
Yeah.
Robert, you still there?
Yes. In the 15% graduation rate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a 15% graduation rate. And just, again, being young and dumb, you don't know that you can fail. So funny story, Robert, when I went to the school, they say brothers don't really graduate from sniper school. And I said, well, why is that? They said, well, because you guys do drive-bys. You guys don't do any sniping.
Oh, man. Wow.
So I laughed, but I certainly made it through the school. And I just learned so many valuable skills that still translate into what I do today.
You know, and coming out of the Marine Corps, again, you didn't just step into, who you are right now. You stepped into other jobs, you set up to other type of professions, and you built up to where you are. Tell us a little bit about, what life looked like after you got out of the Marine Corps and up to the point that you decided that you're going to start, DreamSmart Academy, which was the first name of your organization.
Because I was hooked on assessments. This assessment, Robert, is 30 years old. It's 30, maybe 35 years old, but I was hooked on the idea that behavior mattered, even at a young age, because I had studied it. So I've been a big believer in assessing people, talent, situations, things, like being able to take the analysis and go, what is it that needs to be done to either increase the performance, or what is it that's being done that's derailing our performance, and then writing an action plan so that you can optimize, whether I was a basketball coach, whether I was a real estate agent, whether we own hair salons. Those 3 A's have impacted every part of my life. I can't think of anything that it hasn't, even my parenting style, right? Analyzing our children, seeing what their true talents are, being able to give them an individual coaching plan, because each child has a different style. And being able to know these 3 A's, right, helps you become just better every part of your life, family or professional.
And I'm a firm believer it takes some adversity. You need to go through adversity once, twice, 3 times, maybe every year sometimes to achieve greatness. Adversity really strengthens us. I was married the first time. I'm married on the second time. You've been married before. You're married for the second time. What did you learn about yourself after your first marriage that you were able to put into your second marriage that, created a better Jeffrey Morris?
Well, Robert, you have to start with intention, right? So many of us, when we go through those adverse times, we don't want to look in the mirror and go, who am I really?
Yeah.
And what was my part? And the next thing is, what do I need to do to be the right person for the next person? Because many times we become the same actor on a different stage and we don't really change.
Yeah.
Right. But it was then, Robert, that I really began to dive even deeper into behavior, because I wanted to know, hey, what was my part? What could I have done better? And certainly not all my fault, but I certainly had to own up to what was my fault. And looking at my behavior, communication, even money, temperament, Robert, I had to look at all those things so that I could become the next best person for someone.
And it really is something in you and I have talked about this before, that at certain times in our life, we just have to sit down and be reflective. Now, you're a reflective thinker, so it may be a little bit more natural for you than people like me. I'm a facilitator, or someone who's a strategist, or someone who's an engager, and everyone on the show, these are behavioral aspects of each and every person that I'm stating, out there, that comes through the assessment that Jeffrey gives. But we should come to different points of reflection to really, kind of scorecards ourselves, because, without that scorecard, how do we know if we have movement, right?
You said a mouthful there, and I'm going to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. He said this is a a loose transition. He said this. He said, the highest form of maturity is the ability to be self-critical. That's so powerful to me, right? Again, so many of us don't want to look in the mirror. We don't want to own our behavior. We don't want to own the things that maybe cause derailment, or maybe cause frustration, or maybe cause disruption in our life. So being able to look in the mirror, Robert, whether it's through an assessment or through getting or through getting feedback, Robert, all those things matter. As much feedback as we can get from multiple places in our life, the more effective we can be as parents, as significant others, and as leaders.
Yeah. You know, and I want to talk about this, Jeffrey, because it's something I've been wanting to talk to you about for a long time. You know, many times in our industry, we throw out words, you know, be open, be mindful, be authentic, you know, be the greatest version of yourself. You know, I mean, these are all amazing words, you know, and sometimes, you know, we hear the words and we follow the leader and we try to intellectually follow the same thing, but it really doesn't follow with the heart as well. And I have a saying that says you got to have your heart set before you can work on your mindset. And if you have your heart set and your mindset straight, you'll always work on the skill set. But another word that I never want diluted is the word behavior. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about behavior with you, because, you know, sometimes people actually don't really understand even what behavior is. You know, they hear it and they hear that certain types of behavior, but, you know, behavior, right when you get down to its elemental definition, is really just the way that one acts, the way that you act, the way that I act, the way that Buddy Thornton, who's coming on, acts, the way that Jay Souder and Betsy act. You know, we all have actions that stem from some sort of internal, subconscious, conscious thought, etc. But in your definition, what is behavior itself?
So there's a couple different components to behavior, right? In my opinion, as I've studied it, there's the emotional health, right, component that goes into being behaviorally healthy. But then there's the words, deeds, and the actions, right? Words, deeds, actions, and emotions comprise of what we call behavioral health, right? And I'm not a behavioral health scientist, but as I've studied it, it's the words, it's the deeds, the actions, even some of the intentions, along with our emotional management that make up our behavior.
You know, and that right there, you know, says a lot. So what you're telling me is, you know, behavior is really an emotional and intellectual extension of what and how, you know, the ways that we act then, isn't it?
Yeah, see, we at DreamSmart, we talk about the behavioral fingerprint, right? Just like you have a unique fingerprint, right? You have a set of behavioral fingerprints, and those things usually come down to your life experiences, your expectations, your environments that you grow up in. Were they productive environments? Were they environments that, you know, cause derailment for you today? Even your education level, not master's degree or PhD, but how resilient are you? Remember, we talked about this today, right? How do you handle adversity? Like that type of an education, right? It's the dynamic parts of what we really coach to, Robert, that really help people improve their behavior. Right? Not just the mechanics.
Yeah, because I always talk about, you know, the emotional aspect is, you know, what is your appetite? Are you hungry for success? Are you hungry to meet people? Are you hungry to get the word out there? You know, you have to have that drive. And, you know, I know you and I were teasing about it, but I always said, if you only have aptitude and attitude, then you just have a well-adjusted, smart person. And, you know, you got to have some hunger in there as well, you know, but, you know, once we start understanding these interactions called behavior, my behavior, and how you and I act, and how we see each other, and this point of discovery, you know, really what you're doing is, whether it be in the family or whether it be at school or whether it be as an entrepreneur, you know, part of what you're attempting to do is, optimize, just like we can optimize a software, we can optimize word choice for a story. What you're doing is you're creating like this toolkit that optimizes relationships between people. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we talk about this 3-step process of decode the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We want to decode it first so that we can enhance it or optimize it, I should say. Right. And then we can enhance overall well-being. But the first step is, man, we got to decode the behavior. What's working for you? What's not working for you? And how you naturally wire.
Yep.
And how you naturally wired to communicate, to have money and manage your money, and your behavioral self-awareness. Even your emotional component comes down to something as simple as your behavioral superpower and knowing your behavioral fingerprint.
And when we talk of behavior, it seems like most, how would I say, personality tests, and I think that's what I could bunch them into. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
In a lot of different personality tests are out there, but they usually formulate down to either 4 or 8 different types of personality. But Jeffrey, how DreamSmart works is you actually have some 16 different types of behavioral effects of people. And, some are more dominant, some of them, are more latent, but we all have aspects of all the personalities, but our dominant ones are really the effective way of how we look at the world, interact with each other, and how we can be placed in our success or our failure, right?
So when we think about personality assessments, what we do is much different. Mm-hmm. We've studied the market. There's some 3,000 what we call psychometric tools or assessment platforms. It's probably more than that now because our research is a few years old. But what we're measuring, Robert, what changes very little. Things, your behavior that began to be ingrained since about the age of 3. And it's reinforced from about 3 to about 18. And if you've been in a relationship after 18 and you wonder why it's very difficult for people to change, it's because behavior is hard to change. Now, personality is usually an external factor, right? But behavior is an internal factor. And the fact that we can measure it, Robert, get to the core of who a person is with 91% accuracy, changes the game of how we start to transform lives. Whether we're dealing with individuals, whether we're dealing with families, groups, teams, communities, getting to the core of who and what a person is with 91% predictability is very powerful information to have.
Well, it's really interesting to me because I'm loving this conversation, because one of the things in our business is I hear it all the time, personal development. And I always tell people, what good is personal development if you're not going to choose to use it, but along with that, maybe people aren't choosing to utilize the personal development because they are understanding it intellectually, let's see. But maybe there's something deeper called, let's just make it up here on the show, behavioral development. Can a person, become better at behavior, and implement, let's say, behavior development, which would also affect the personal development that we all so desire? Is that possible?
Absolutely, Robert. Again, when we see discord, when we see a lack of harmony, when we see a lack of unity, there's 3 things at play, right? There's behavior, behavioral self-awareness, either ineffective communications or effective communications, or a lack of financial awareness, right? When we think about high-performing individuals, families, groups, and teams, these things are aligned. They have an effective communications channel. They're aligned with their money temperament, right? And they certainly are aware of how their behavior plays an impact in all that they do. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, and all of that has an impact, but when we bring it over to the entrepreneurial community, and and that's what I work with all the time. People are like, how can they find their success? you know you know if I was to talk to someone, let's say better yet, if you were to talk to entrepreneurs out there, and you say, hey, it's nice to know your bottom line. It's nice to know your KPIs. It's nice to know you have a great 30-second commercial. It's nice that you have a branded logo. But I'm here to talk about behavior and how behavior is going to affect your business, how it's going to affect your C-suite, how it's going to affect your mid-management, how it's going to affect your employees and line leaders. And when you're talking to these entrepreneurs and corporate leaders, how do you break through to them, so they understand, really the issues that all businesses have are behavior issues and many times nothing else.
Well, Robert, when we think about entrepreneurs, there's been many great business plans, many great ideas, but what's the one thing that often derails them? The behavior of the team.
The personalities, yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. The people on the team may not be aligned. So when we're thinking about entrepreneurial development, again, behavior plays a critical part. 10 to 20% of why a business will fail, why a business will succeed, depends on the business plan itself, marketing, right, research, and all those things. The other 80% have to do with how coachable someone is. How coachable is a team? How coachable is a founder? Right. And then it comes down to emotional intelligence. How emotionally mature are the people on the team? And then do we have the right people in the right seat on the right bus, right? Good to great. Right. And then what are the temperaments, and what temperaments do we need to make sure are aligned so they don't cause derailment? Right. It's the dynamic parts that fail most business leaders. Right. At the DreamSmart Academy, we know that we have 4 or 5 initiators: Dr. Greg Spencer, Ted McLyman, Terry Hawkins, Kenyatta Turner, the influencer, Sherry Giddings, the influencer, Bill Pankey, another initiator, Jeff Morris, the only reflective thinker. We don't have a facilitator like you, Robert. So I have to play the role of facilitator. But the initiators are off to the races. I'm going, wait a minute, how are we going to do that? That's a great idea, but how are we going to do that? And then if I want the idea out there, right, we can give it to Kenyatta and Sherry, and they're off to the races, and they can make it feel fun for everybody, where I'm not going to do that.
Well, and that's really interesting because, in the military, but also in sports, there's something called positions. And in business, I would say it's like roles. Everyone, gets to the point of role. And in business, according to my assessment, I'm a facilitator. I'm the guy. I like getting things going. I like idea creation. I like bringing people together. I thrive off of energy, success, and action. I really like that. But then other times it's like, man, if it goes on for too long, man, I start to get a little tired and bored of it. I'm like ready to get the next thing started. That's a little bit of my superpower. Someone else can manage it, but man, I just want to get it going. So really, when you're looking like a reflective thinker versus a facilitator versus an engager versus an influencer versus a strategist, it really is, when you're talking about, and this is really what I want to get out there, especially for people that are growing their companies, but it's not just their companies of people they employed, but it's actually the power teams that they create to help their company grow, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, when we think of Sean, your beautiful wife, she's a strategist.
Right.
Like, I'm like, Sean, whatever you say, I know you already figured it out. You already got the strategy. I'm just going to say, yes, ma'am. Right. Where you, Robert, are a natural at making people feel great, the mission, right? And getting the result. There's a balance that you have that is so natural for you, and facilitators exceed. People don't even know they've been facilitated, right? But it magically happens that the people feel great at the end of the mission because of how you facilitate what needs to be done. You do it like breathing. You did it at the entrepreneur event. Like, you can engage people in such a way where they will accept your call to action, and the thing will get done, whatever that is. You have it, Robert, in spades, and your facilitator superpower is what has allowed you to build such a successful organization. And you complement that with Sean and the strategy that she brings to the table. It's an unbeatable team, unbelievable team.
And it really is something that you see more. And as I'm beginning to understand the different personality types, it also kind of creates a way for me to develop my own operating manual, because everyone has, because of their behavioral style, let's say, there's an equal like communication style that works better for some than others. And once you start understanding that, I think that's the part of the optimization that you start learning through these superpowers between people. And that's what I love that you do with your academy. We're coming down to the end of the segment here a little bit, but just tell us about the markers in the assessment that you measure from to help bring out what that personality looks like for each individual.
Sure. So we're going to replace the word personality with the word behavioral identity, right? Because
you're doing. See, there you go. I love it. It's like get that. Even me, right, Jeffrey? It's like get that personality. We're going deep. We're
going to shift the language a little bit, because personality, like we said, can be measured about every 6 months, and it can change. Right. So we're going to talk about behavioral identity, the things that has been wired in you since you have been about 3. It's been reinforced up until about the age of 18. And at that point, it takes a lot to shift just a little bit. Like, I've been a reflective thinker since I've been a kid. I'm a fast-paced, pioneering, reflective thinker. And as long as I can remember, that's what I've been. Right. So when we think about, Robert, you mentioned these 16 personalities. And so I'm going to go back again, and we have 16 factors, right? We have 8 on the right, 8 on the left. The first 4, for the audience that's familiar with DISC, we kind of mirror DISC, right? But then we take another 4 factors that DISC doesn't have, and we start to measure things like trust. Like, how naturally do you trust person? Are you someone that is more trusting of what you hear, or someone like me who's more skeptical? Right. I'm skeptical because I'm trying to get to a point of clarity. So I ask questions. Right. Then how pioneering are you? Right. I'm extremely high in pioneering. Right. How risky are you? Do you accept risk, or do you like hold on to a tree and go, I ain't doing none of that? Right. That's my wife. She's 401k, 3 weeks of vacation. I don't want none of that. Right. The riskier it is, the better it probably is for me. But knowing this power, I need to make sure I balance it. And the last thing is how creative you are. There's 16 factors, 8 on the right, 8 on the left. But Robert, there's 24 sub-factors. So when you're dealing with the DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions assessment, you're really getting about 4,000 behavioral insights. Did you hear what I said? 4,000. Not a couple of hundred. You're getting 4,000 insights. Do you think you could show up with authenticity and transparency, right? And all the things to attract people, work on yourself, become a better person, or a better version of yourself with some of those types of insights?
Well, you know what, Jeffrey, I've said this saying for a long, long time, and this is why I think you're the best. I said, there's one thing about life I know, almost every, even a toaster oven, almost every appliance comes, with an owner's manual. But one thing humans don't have is an owner's manual. But I think, my friend, you have the closest thing to an owner's manual for all of us entrepreneurs out there. And I am happy to be spreading the word of what you're offering all of us.
Yeah. It's a life blueprint, Robert, for success. As you said, there's so many, and I appreciate the fact that you are an evangelist. A behavioral evangelist. You said that today. You're spreading the word, and so happy that you're a part of our ecosystem, Robert. And thank you for having me today, my brother.
Absolutely. Again, everyone, I am with Jeffery Morris. He's an author, speaker, U.S. Marine, a behavioral superpower coach, consultant, and trainer. I mean, that's a mouthful right there, Jeff.
A mouthful, a bunch, right?
And we can add more. He's co-founder of DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. He can be reached at jmorris@DreamSmartBehavioralSolutions.com. Or you can just call him. He's brave enough to have his number out there. Just call him, 760-415 1071. If he can't help you, I'm sure he can route you to someone who can. Jeffrey, thank you so much for being on the show today. You know, like I say, the show's like Tic Tacs. We'll keep making more, and let's do this again.
Love it again. Like you said, Robert, I'm always open to having someone call me. I'm from the old school, so definitely give me a call. I'll be willing to chat with you. Thank you again, Robert.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
All right. I want to thank again Jeffrey Morris for being on the show today. I mean, he is a wealth of information. You know, please reach out to me and I can get you in contact with him. Just establish that one-on-one meeting. Do it through Zoom. But, you know, the main thing is just to do it. I'm really excited. I mean, Jeffrey was in the United States Marines. I was in the United States Marines. And, you know, we have someone we both love and adore, Navy Corpsman, Mr. Buddy Thornton. I'm glad to have him on the show today. Welcome, buddy. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing great, Robert, and I really appreciate being on the show. And I mean, you paired me with Jeffrey, and I just love Jeffrey. So, you know, we're behaviorists on two ends of the stick, and I love what he does, and he complements what I do. So we're going to make this a rocking show.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone, I'm with Buddy Thornton. He's a best-selling author, editor, speaker, Navy Corpsman, and us U.S. Marines. I mean, if there's any brother in arms that we love, it's our Navy Corpsman. He is a Marine by spirit, by heart, maybe not by billet, but you are definitely one of us, buddy. So we appreciate you for it. He's also founder of BCT Mediations Plus and Positive Social Change Agent Pro. He can be reached at Buddies, BUDDY, Pro. What is that? Buddies Pro. I'm sorry, buddy. Help me with that.
It's Buddy PSCA Pro, and the PSCA stands for Positive Social Change.
There we go. Buddy PSCA Pro at gmail.com. I want to get that for all the transcribers out there, or he can be called at 480-861-1371. Buddy, I want to thank you for being on the show today. And, you know, let's get right into it. You know, we talked a lot about behavior in the first segment. And, you know, I love what Jeffrey had to say about behavior and how meaningful it is, you know, whether you're the community, family, and certainly business, you know, and understanding the different, you know, personality styles, you know. But one of the things I like to say is you talked about it, you know, a little bit, and I want to kind of open this up. You know, we can all communicate, but there's always some forms of conflict that come into play with any business owners, partners, and employer to employee, you know, people on the staff. You know, we all have different ideas. We all have different ways of doing business. We all have different motivations, you know, and conflict is going to exist. But one of the things that we haven't talked about on this show, buddy, is we've talked about the concept of conflict, but we haven't really diagnosed what conflict looks like, because not all conflict is the same. You know, conflict manifests at different levels, you know, for each individual in each situation. You know, tell us, you know, some of these differing levels of conflict, and how can we assess them when, you know, we may get in conflict, you know, on a daily, monthly, or annual basis?
Well, I think the most important thing that people need to understand is that we do not grow in a passive environment, because we all need stimulus. We all need stressors to overcome. You know, if everything's good in your life, are you really going to strive to do more? I don't think so. And history bears me out. For, you know, more than 400,000 years, the human beings never left the savannah because they had plenty of food and nothing was really predating them. They didn't have to worry about a lot of things. You know what? We're in the modern era now. and we have to worry about walking out our front door. So anything and everything can be a microaggression. It doesn't matter how you get triggered. Your triggers are all based on exactly what Jeffrey said. From about the age of 2 to 3, you're pretty well developed into your behavioral style, and we can draw the line from infant to adult, and it stays pretty much the same regardless of what we do. We're going to always go back to that center, that regression to the mean type concept. So conflict is actually a constant in your environment. You need it to grow. How do we look at it? Some people get angry. Some people get challenged. Some people show determination and grit. Sometimes conflict is, one of the 3 responses. No, I'm not going to do that. Yes, I can overcome that. Or, well, I just don't know. There's 3 very distinct levels there. And you've reached a certain level when you actually look at something and go, nope, I'm not engaging in that. That's too much for me. That's when conflict is overcoming you. Mm-hmm. When you're ambivalent about it, you're kind of like, is that going to help me? It's based on self-interest. So if you're going to challenge it, you're going to challenge yourself and you're going to work through the conflict. It's because you see growth at the other end. And so once again, self-interest takes hold and we work through it, either whether our own devices or we get outside help.
And that's what I really want to concentrate in. And I appreciate that you brought it up. You kind of went into it a little bit faster than I wanted to, buddy, because when because I like to talk about conflict a little more. And, my question was going to lead into, these differing forms of conflict, and you address that in a certain way, but I want to go a little bit deeper. See, conflict is really, when it comes to communication, you have the encoder and the decoder, and communication goes back and forth between 2 people. And, a lot of people look at conflict as something that could be physical or something that could be volatile or something that could even be violent, but many times, conflict really is sometimes 2 people just doing micro negotiations to get a better place. And conflict isn't always a bad word. And you address that somewhat. Conflict can be a very good word, because if 2 people coming from 2 dissimilar places can get to the point of creating a conflict and then, having the resolution or resilience to come to an agreement, conflict can be much better for everyone involved, can it?
Yes. If you walk into a room and it's a meeting and someone's getting nothing but, yep, you're right. Yep, you're right. Nobody's going to throw any new ideas out on the table.
Yeah.
So the human race, we thrive on the pecking order. We want to know where we fit. We want to know whether we can get to a higher level. And so, and we see everyone around us as either being collaborators or competition. And when you see people as collaborators, it isn't as much that you want to let them get ahead of you or you ahead of them. You want to bring them with you. True leaders use conflict as a coalescing force. They try to bring people together and say, look, this is a problem we need to overcome. I will accept any suggestion on the table. Let's work through them, no matter how stupid you think it is. It may not be stupid. It actually might be the only thing that works. So let's get it all out there, and then let's discuss it. And some of the greatest outcomes have come after heated discussions. Nope, yeah. I think your idea is crazy, but we never reach human consensus. I was with the Marines, 2nd Force Troops, and we would have discussions about exactly what was the best way to overcome an obstacle in our path. And from the lieutenant all the way down through to the lowest guy, everyone had a word because everyone's life was on the line. So you had to understand that if you didn't get a voice, how committed were you going to be to saving yourself and the people around you? And so that it was a great training exercise early in my life of, wow, if you can't depend on the people around you, they're sure as heck not going to depend on you. So yes, conflict actually is a better driver and motivator than it is a separator. Mm-hmm. When we get to the point where, like you said, if it's violence or it's aggressive or it's, those are not conflict anymore. Those are hyper aggressive behavior above conflict. Conflict is when you disagree. A dispute is when you disagree aggressively. A hyper dispute is when you go to war, you kill somebody or hurt somebody very badly. So there's different levels you have to understand in that.
Yeah, and I believe a certain amount of conflict, and I'm going to keep in there, especially when it comes to group dynamics. If you force conflict on a group, many times the group will actually get to the point of bonding and not separating. Would you agree?
Every time. You know, a lot of times when we're doing behavioral studies, and of course I'm a researcher, right? So I'm the other side of the coin from Jeffrey. When you're doing behavioral studies, you need to look at something that is as close to you as it can be. Now we look at two different groups. We look at identical twins, and we look at the great apes. We look at bonobos, and we look at chimpanzees. In the chimpanzee world, when they get highly stressed, they tear each other apart. When the bonobos get highly stressed, they form a coalition and they try to defend the pack. And, you know, when it comes to identical twins, as long as they are not faced with a separating conflict, they will always tend to coalesce around one unified effort. And it doesn't matter. They normally will actually try to, like, no, you decide. No, you decide. So it's actually a handoff. And, you know, it can be debilitating at times if you're in a small enough group. But when you get into a large group, say above 5 or 6, the communal effect does take over and powerful things happen.
Yeah, you know, and it not only happens in business, and I see Donna Sprocka Metter, she's on the show doing some commentary. You know, conflict can also happen in relationships as well. You know, and in the same manner, all conflicts, all disagreements, they could come in all forms and fashions at different levels, and many times, you know, what creates a stronger relationship is not running from the conflict. It's actually negotiating that conflict and coming to a better point, isn't it? A better place.
Right. Well, okay. So let's address that from its root cause. Mm-hmm. Again, you can love somebody for a long time or you can be very, very passionate about them and still have strong disagreements with them. What is usually the unifier is proper communication. I agree 100% with what Jeffrey said about you have to address the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror first, and you have to accept what is my contribution to this conflict, and why am I so willing to defend my position as opposed to listen to the other position. Mm-hmm. When I talk about my 4 pillars of behavior, the very first one and the most important one is yourself. You have to know yourself well enough to understand that what you believe is important, but it can never be more important than the third party in the room, which is the relationship. So even if you're talking about a husband and wife, the relationship has to be more powerful than either party, because the relationship needs to be have a life of its own, and it needs to extend into infinity. And even when 2 people grow apart or they have some physical issues or whatever, the bond that the relationship, honoring that relationship, what that creates is it creates grit and persistence. You can survive through a lot of conflict if you're just really, really focusing on, I want to preserve that relationship above all else.
Well, you know, and it's really interesting to me because I remember one time I was going through some counseling, and the counselor said a lot of conflict really stems from reflection. There's something in the other person that reflects on yourself internally. And, you know, instead of lashing out at yourself, you're actually lashing out at the other person when it's actually you identifying with the very conflict that's being created. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. You know, it's really funny. You can never get angry with the other person if you can see you in them. Mm-hmm. And so what I try to do when I'm working with 2 people who are in strong conflict, and usually it's either a parent teen or 2 married people, they're in strong conflict. And then I start asking them, okay, do you understand the other side of the coin as well as you understand yourself? And if they can get on the other side of the coin and they can look how ridiculous they look, at times, come on. I know I get the last 2 words in every discussion. It's called yes, dear, So yeah. at the end of the day, I have to understand that I'm contributing to the problem. And if I accept that at a very visceral level, then there's no conflict that can't be resolved. It's when you refuse to let go of your image and you refuse to acknowledge the other image in the room, that's when conflict gets extended. It gets really, really huge. And when you get that massive, that's when really bad things can occur.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, buddy. Getting to work with you on the book, The Art of Connection, and everyone, please, if you're not in it, 365 days of gratitudequotes.com. You can go there, you can learn more about the book, buddy. You edit a lot of the author pages in the book. And I look at your life and mediation and how you handle conflict, how you handle people, how you handle personalities. But I also look at you also handle, editing in much the same manner. You create a place of having the relationships with the very words that you are reading, and you have the ability to access those words and bring back to the writer something to the table that makes them formulate their thoughts in a much more communicative way. Tell us about what you've learned in mediation that helps you so much in editing, for authors.
Well, I think the most important thing that I learned in mediation that helps me work with authors and people who want to get their story out to the world, speakers that I work with, is the ability to listen. Mm-hmm. If you can't listen and understand all of the nuances of someone's voice and their story and their backstory and what motivates them and what drives them, how can you possibly keep something in their voice when you're helping them complete a task, or when you're actually giving them the framework and they're writing it, and then you're just going in and maybe correcting a few commas? The bottom line is everyone has a story. Everyone does not have the ability to tell it at the same level. So when you're working with somebody and they say, I really want this to sound powerful, my thought first is, well, are you really wanting to project power, or are you wanting to project competence? So we have that conversation. I listen to what they say, but then I try to look into their soul. I try to look into their heart. Mm-hmm. What are you really trying to say? What is your superpower? And, I took the test that Jeffery gave, and I'm a community builder. So, my superpower is taking what other people bring out and say they want to do, and then cross-referencing it back into what they really want to do on a subconscious level. Because I'm a behaviorist. I look into people's souls and I try to determine who they are, not who they're trying to project. What is the face they're putting on? What's the mask? What's the schema they're trying to fit into? I don't care about all that. That's all superficial. I want people to show me their soul so that I can come back and I can help them write a piece that's reflective of their soul.
Well, and see, there's a reason why I'm binding this, and what makes you such a great editor is, and I'm going to bring this out. And there's a lot of things that are attributable to William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare, one of the things that he stated when I studied him, he's like, it's not about the words on the page. It's about the feeling of the space between each word that matters. And so, and that's what you do when it comes to conflict. It's not about the words that they are saying necessarily, at least initially. It's about the result of what they're wanting to reach. And in the same way, that's what editing looks like. It's not just about the words, it's the space in between, or the feeling that the author is trying to convey. And being a mediator and being an editor are far more complementary than they are competitive, aren't they?
Yes. The common goal is you're supposed to take two divided things and create one new entity, one new thing. A lot of mediators, a lot of people in the world think that mediators are just divorce mediators. And a divorce mediator is supposed to take a broken home and create two new functional homes. Well, I decided early on I wasn't going to be doing divorce. I was going to be doing the other thing. And I was, I'll take those broken homes and I will try to make a good home, whether it has one parent, two parent, whether it's a non-traditional home. I don't care. It doesn't matter what it is. Remove the conflict from the home. Will we stop some of the divorces? Maybe. I think we will. But you're very right. It's not the end date and it's not the beginning date. It's the space between those two dates that counts. Everything you say is now. It's right now. But here's the beauty of life. As soon as the words come out of my mouth, Robert, they're in the past. Mm-hmm. You get to choose how you take the words. It's called perspective taking. While I'm responsible for perspective making, I'm supposed to paint a picture for you. I can't control how you're going to take it. So isn't it important for me to be very careful about how I paint that picture. Very important about how I put those words on the page, because I may write it one way and I'm thinking you're going to take it that way, and you go way off into left field with it. And I just created a monster because I wrote something without thinking first. And I don't do that.
Yeah. And I think many times, as business owners and as, wives and husbands, as parents, etc., I think sometimes we don't put enough value on our thoughts, and it comes across in words. And, and that's a tragedy, because really, I think there's no greater thing for people and between people than having a stewardship of the very ideas that we convey through our words. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. I hinge a lot of my thoughts on David Hume. David Hume said there's more value in being than doing. And so before you choose your words, let's say you're a parent and you have a teen that's struggling. Before you choose your words, shouldn't you consider that they have value? And even if they're doing something wrong, it's the behavior that needs to be addressed, not the person. And so you really need to build into every word you say, how do I show dignity and respect to the being while I address the doing? And it's critical. No matter what anything else is happening around you, always remember that the person in the conflict with you has value. And it's when you start doing these ad hominem attacks, personal attacks to hurt people, that's when you're saying, I don't value you. So if you just remove that from the entire equation, if every parent said, I'm never going to personally attack my child, I'm never going to call them a bad name, I'm never going to say they are bad, I will say that the behavior was bad or good, because you want to recognize good things too. Don't you think it would be a lot easier to be a parent? You're a parent. Wouldn't you think that would help your environment?
Oh, absolutely. I agree, 110%. And this is what the beauty of communication, buddy. And this is, whether it's writing, whether it's speaking, whether it's the nonverbal communication that we have all as well, which, what is that? 70%, interpersonal communication is those nonverbal cues. I mean, there is something about the subconscious training of being very intentional in your own being, because that's reflective of your saying and your doing. And one of the things that I say about being is being is really a reflection of the teeter-totter. And I always say your being is in the middle of the teeter-totter, and then you have the two sides. And what you want to have is you want to have a balance, because if they're off a little bit, people can measure that as well. So in other words, what I say and what I do should be equally measured. Because if I say it at a higher level and I do it at a lower level, mistrust comes in, because your words and your actions aren't equitable, right? They don't equate. They're not balanced with each other. And, it's like, this guy always says that he's going to do this stuff, but he never does it, or, and I always look at the more that your words and your actions align, the more that trust comes from it. Because if we say certain things in a certain way and then we do certain things in a different way, the further they are apart, the further it's hard for people to trust those people. And I think that that's a part of what you do without knowing it. I'm saying that you do that because you help balance the words and the actions. And many times, we know not what we say, or we know not what we do. But once we become a little bit more meaningful, and you bring those aspects together, we can actually move forward, whether it's, writing, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business partnership, whether it's your life partner, all of these things matter. And sometimes we just don't put enough value on what it is that we're conveying to that other person. Wouldn't you think?
Well, I think that it really rolls down to, again, that self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to honor what Jeffrey said about self-awareness. If you can't look in the mirror and be happy, I have a saying that I tell people when I'm working with them, and it's called, the definition of a optimal role model is someone who can walk the talk and understand the reason why it's important. It's not enough to just do what you say, but you have to also understand how that it reflects on you to other people, and how you influence their behavior by your behavior. So if you say, no, I don't want you to do that, but then you go and do it, your child is going to do exactly what you did, not what you said. And your business, your customers are going to take their cues from you. If you are meeting a standard, they are going to believe in you. If you're not meeting that standard, you're not living the life of a role model. And it's so critical that you do that. And, I know you've read some of my books, and you read my fifth book that is shortly coming out. And I focus strictly on never being prescriptive. I don't tell people how to behave, but I do help them understand all of the factors that are involved in behaving, and I'll let them make their own choices, because guess what? I don't know their backstory. I don't know their origin story. I don't know their environment. I don't know who they have to deal with on a daily basis, but I want to give them all the tools to do so.
Well, and I think what you do is you can't choose backward, but you can always choose forward. And that is the training that you help people get to. And once they really understand that, they stop beating themselves up as well, because they know that the game is always, walking forward and it's not going backwards, because you can't change what had happened. You can only learn from it, and you'll make the change to move on. And that comes within your choice dynamic. So again, everyone, I'm with Buddy Thornton. He's a best-selling author, editor, speaker, Navy corpsman. Jeffrey and I love you, brother. And founder of BCT Mediations Plus and Positive Social Change Agent Pro. He can be reached at Buddy PSCA Pro. There we go, buddy. Buddy PSCA Pro at gmail.com, or called at 480-861-1371. Buddy, thank you so much for being on the show here today. I appreciate you. And like Jeffrey, let's do this again sometime.
It was an honor, Robert. And anytime you need me, you've got my number on speed dial.
Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank Buddy Thornton and Jeffrey Morris for being on the show today. Remember, everyone, we are here each and every Thursday from 2:30 to 3:30 right now, Pacific time. I invite you to be on the show and reach out to me. And if you're watching the show, please use our comments area. I will highlight you or highlight a question so everyone knows that you're there with us. Again, my name is Robert Jones. I'm with the iNetrepreneur Network radio show. And I appreciate you guys being here, and I'd love to see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
You've been watching the iNetrepreneur Show, a production of the iNetrepreneur Radio Network, with host Robert W. Jones. Join Robert each week as he visits with new and exciting guests who inspire, teach, and mentor entrepreneurs worldwide. Follow Robert each Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and 8:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time.